You know how sometimes nature just seems like this mad scientist? Like seriously, mushrooms that glow in the dark, fungi that eat radiation. It's pretty wild, and that's what we're diving into today.
That's a great way to put it. Nature as a mad scientist.
We're talking nature's mutants, and we're going deep with this book, Nature's Mutants, Hidden Gold in the Genetic Code. It's all about how these tiny little changes in DNA can create some really incredible adaptations.
It's true. We often think about mutation as this negative thing,
Yeah.
like something's gone wrong. But actually, mutations are the engine of evolution. They're what create the amazing diversity of life we see on Earth.
Okay, so let's back up for a sec. When we say mutations, what are we actually talking about here? And the genetic level.
So think of your DNA like a giant library, right? Full of all these instructions for life. A mutation is basically a change in the letters of those instructions. It could be just swapping one letter for another, or something bigger like deleting or adding whole sections of code.
Okay, I'm with you. But so if our DNA is like this instruction manual, wouldn't changing even a little bit mess things up?
Well, yeah, some mutations can be harmful, for sure. They can cause diseases or problems. But most mutations are actually neutral.
Okay.
They don't really have any effect we can see. And then there are some, a small fraction, that are beneficial. They give an organism a new trait that actually helps it survive.
And so those are the ones that drive evolution.
Exactly. Nature is constantly experimenting, with these mutations. And over time, those beneficial ones stick around, they spread through a population, and eventually you end up with a new species with these incredible adaptations.
Speaking of adaptations, have you heard about the axolotl? It's a salamander. And it never really grows up. It stays in its larval stage its whole life.
I love axolotls.
And get this, it can regenerate not just limbs, but parts of its brain. How is that even possible?
The axolotl is like a genetic goldmine. Scientists are studying its genes, trying to unlock the secrets of regeneration, especially for humans. Imagine being able to regrow damaged tissues or even whole organs.
That's straight out of science fiction.
It is. And it's not just the axolotl either. We're going to switch gears here a bit. What about life in a radioactive wasteland?
Were you talking Chernobyl?
Chernobyl, exactly. It's a place we associate with disaster, right? But even there, life finds a way. There are these black fungi that have actually adapted to use radiation as a source of energy.
That's mind-blowing. So they don't just tolerate the radiation, they actually use it.
They thrive on it. It's this incredible example of how mutations can lead to these adaptations that just seem impossible.
So how are they doing that? How can a fungus eat radiation?
Well, scientists think they have these special pigments, kind of like melanin, that absorb the radiation and convert it into energy.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a regenerative salamander and radiation-eating fungi. What other wonders are hiding in the world of mutations?
Let's talk about bioluminescence. Fireflies, anglerfish, those glowing mushrooms you mentioned earlier, they can all produce light. It's due to very specific chemical reactions happening inside them.
Bioluminescence is one of those things that always makes me go, how is that even real? It's like magic, but it's got to be mutations.
Oh, absolutely. Mutations in certain genes let them create these molecules that emit light. And what's really cool is scientists are now studying those genes to make things like glowing plants for more efficient lighting, or even bioluminescent markers for medical imaging.
So it's not just observing these cool adaptations. We're learning from them and trying to use that knowledge to solve our own problems.
Exactly. And you know what? We're not just observing and learning anymore. We're getting to a point where we can actively participate in the evolutionary process.
Hold on. What do you mean?
It's called directed evolution, and it's changing everything.
Directed evolution. Okay, I need you to explain this because that sounds pretty sci-fi.
It's like we're taking the principles of natural selection, survival of the fittest, but we're speeding it up, and we're guiding it towards a goal.
So instead of waiting for evolution to just happen over millions of years, we're taking the reins and steering it.
Pretty much. We can introduce mutations into DNA in the lab, screen for the ones that give us a specific trait, and then breed those organisms. We're essentially fast-forwarding evolution.
That's incredible. But it also makes me think about ethics.
Yeah.
How far should we go in manipulating life like that?
That's a really important point. Directed evolution has huge potential for good, but we need to think carefully about the ethical implications. That's a conversation for another time, though.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need to unpack that more. But first, I want to hear more about what directed evolution can actually do. What are the real-world applications?
Oh, there are so many. For starters, think about laundry detergent.
Laundry detergent, really?
Yeah. It uses enzymes to break down stains right. Well, with directed evolution, we've engineered enzymes that work better at lower temperatures. That means you can wash your clothes in cold water and save energy.
Huh. Never thought about laundry detergent like that before.
It's already impacting our lives in ways we don't even realize, and it has potential in medicine, agriculture, environmental cleanup, all kinds of stuff.
This is fascinating. I'm ready to dive into some specific examples, but I think my brain needs a break to process all this.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in.
When we come back, we'll explore even more mind-blowing examples of nature's mutants and how scientists are using them to shape the future. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about directed evolution, and it's like, whoa, we can actually speed up evolution and guide it.
It is amazing, isn't it, what we can do now with biotechnology? It's like this. In nature, mutations happen kind of randomly over a long time.
Right.
And the environment picks the winners, survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
But with directed evolution, we're bringing that process into the lab and making it happen way faster.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh.
But how do they actually do it? Like introduce the mutations and then choose the ones they want?
Well, there are a few ways, and it usually involves some pretty high-tech gene editing. One way is called error-prone PCR. It's a way to copy DNA, but you make more mistakes on purpose, so you get mutations.
So you're forcing those mutations to happen.
Exactly. Another method is DNA shuffling. You take genes from different organisms and you mix them up, like a deck of cards. And you end up with new combinations, potentially with brand new traits.
Wow. So it's like we're taking evolution's toolkit and using it to solve problems.
Yeah.
You mentioned laundry detergent before. Are there other examples of directed evolution in action right now?
Oh yeah, tons. One really cool area is bioremediation. That's using living things to clean up pollution. Like scientists have engineered bacteria that can break down oil spills way faster.
So instead of all that oil just sitting there causing damage, we can use these super bacteria to clean it up.
Exactly. You could use them in a recycling plant to process plastic waste or even release them into the environment to clean up existing pollution. And it's not just plastic either. They're engineering enzymes that can break down pesticides and all sorts of industrial chemicals.
It's like we're giving nature's cleanup crew a serious upgrade.
It's true. And speaking of upgrades, what about sustainable biofuels? Algae, that green stuff in ponds, it can produce oils that we can turn into fuel.
Right.
A renewable alternative to fossil fuels. And guess what? Through directed evolution, scientists are making algae that produce way more of those oils.
So we could be powering our cars and stuff with algae oil.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool. And it's not just about energy. What about medicine?
Okay, yeah. How's directed evolution being used in medicine?
Drug development is a big one.
Yeah.
Enzymes, those little molecules that control chemical reactions in our bodies, well, they're crucial for how drugs work. And we can engineer them to be more effective, more targeted, even do completely new things.
So we're making better medicine thanks to directed evolution.
Exactly. And it's helping create new treatments for all sorts of diseases. For example, antibody therapies. You know how our immune systems create antibodies to fight off invaders like viruses?
Yeah.
Well, with directed evolution, we can engineer antibodies that are way more powerful, more stable. They can even target multiple things at once.
Wow, that's like a whole new level of disease fighting.
It really is. But of course, there are challenges with all this too.
Right, like what?
One big one is unintended consequences. Like when we mess with genes, we're dealing with really complex systems that we don't fully understand. Changing one thing could have all these ripple effects that we didn't expect in the organism or even in the whole ecosystem.
So it's not as simple as, let's just change this gene and everything will be perfect.
Definitely not. We have to be really careful and have those ethical conversations we were talking about earlier. It's about finding the right balance between innovation and responsibility.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we make sure we're using this power for good and not accidentally messing things up?
It's a tough question. We need strong regulations for one thing, and we need to be open about the research, talk about the risks, include the public in the conversation.
So it's not just scientists working in a lab, it's about everyone being involved in making these decisions.
Absolutely. Directed evolution has the potential to completely change the world, and it's a journey we have to take together.
I think that's a great point to pause on. This idea of directed evolution being this powerful force that we need to handle with care. When we come back, we'll look at some more real-world examples of how scientists are using directed evolution to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges. Stay with us. All right, so we're back and ready to hear about some real-world examples of directed evolution in action. Like, where's this actually being used to make a difference?
Well, for starters, let's talk about plastic.
Okay, yeah, plastic pollution is a huge problem.
It is, and scientists are using directed evolution to fight back. They're engineering enzymes that can break down plastic.
Wait, really? So instead of plastic hanging around for like hundreds of years, we could just break it down with these enzymes.
That's the idea. These enzymes could be used in recycling plants or even released into the environment to help clean up all the plastic that's already out there.
That would be amazing. And it's not just plastic, right?
Nope, not at all. There are also engineering enzymes that can break down other pollutants like pesticides and industrial chemicals, all kinds of nasty stuff.
It's like we're giving nature a turbo boost to clean up our mess.
Exactly. And speaking of turbo boosts, what about agriculture? We need to produce more food than ever to feed everyone, but we also need to do it sustainably.
Right.
Well, directed evolution can help there too. We can engineer crops that are more resistant to pests and diseases, crops that need less water and fertilizer, even crops with more nutrients.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about quality too.
Exactly. We're talking about crops that are better for the environment and better for us. And it's not just about the plants themselves either. We can also engineer microbes, those tiny organisms that live in the soil to help plants absorb nutrients more efficiently. It's all about working with nature to create a healthier and more sustainable food system.
This is all so incredible. But we've also talked about the potential downsides, right? Like the ethical concerns and the possibility of unintended consequences.
Absolutely. We have to proceed with caution. Transparency is key. We need to be open about the research and the risks. And we need to make sure the public is involved in the conversation. This isn't just something for scientists to decide.
It's a decision for all of us. Because directed evolution has the potential to change life as we know it.
It really does. And it's a journey we need to take together, with careful consideration and a shared commitment to using this power responsibly.
So I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of nature's mutants. From glowing mushrooms to radiation-eating fungi, we've seen how these tiny changes in DNA can lead to some truly incredible adaptations.
And with directed evolution, we're learning to harness that power to solve some of the biggest challenges facing humanity.
It's a reminder that nature is full of surprises and possibilities, and that by understanding and respecting the power of mutations, we can create a better future for ourselves and the planet. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world.